The symbolism of the cross and the mandala. Although Jesus was crucified on a cross, this video explores the mystic symbolism of the cross in general and how it relates to the mandala. The general symbolism of the cross in its various forms is ancient and has nothing to do with crucifixion. It was used by the Celts, the Picts, the Aztecs, the Egyptians and Hindus, as well as many other ancient civilisations. Christians, however, have adopted one of the crosses, the Latin cross, as a symbol. Thus it behoves us to at least explain why to non-Christians before we look at any more general meanings. The crucifixion of Jesus. Although Jesus was crucified, killed, on a cross, we don't actually know which type of cross it was. The Romans employed a number of exceptionally barbaric ways of killing, executing people. They were usually stripped naked, the legs of the person were broken or shattered with an iron club, and then they were attached to a cross or pole by some method, nails or rope. Some were even impaled. The Judean historian Josephus stated that at the siege of Jerusalem, the soldiers, out of rage and hatred, nailed those they caught, one after one way and another after another, to the crosses, by way of jest. The eminent Roman orator Cicero described crucifixion as a most cruel and disgusting punishment, and that to scourge is a wickedness, to put to death is almost parricide. And what shall I say of crucifying? So guilty an action cannot by any possibility be adequately expressed by any name bad enough for it. But it seems the Romans weren't the only barbaric ones. Crucifixion or impalement in one form or another was used by Persians, Carthaginians, and Macedonians. The Greeks were generally opposed to performing crucifixions. And lest one should forget, whilst this was 2,000 plus years ago, lynchings in the American South reached their height from the 1890s to the 1920s. According to Wikipedia, approximately 1/3 of the victims were falsely accused. According to the Tuskegee Institute, 4,743 people were lynched between 1882 and 1968 in the United States, including 3,446 African Americans and 1,297 whites. Lynching victims were also killed by a variety of other methods, being shot, burned alive, thrown off a bridge, dragged behind a car, etc. Occasionally, body parts of victims were removed and sold as souvenirs. According to American historian Michael J. Pfeiffer, the prevalence of lynching reflected a lack of confidence in the due process of the U.S. judicial system. Legislators introduced the death penalty as a replacement for the alternative of mob violence. We can but hope that these days are past. And let us now move on to the mystic symbolism of the cross. Two-dimensional crosses. If we examine the cross simply as a symbol, we find it is virtually universal, used in the floor plan of cathedrals. We also find it in the design of mandalas. Where the design is very similar to a Maltese cross. The Celtish and Pictish crosses are also Maltese cross and mandala-like in design, each having a central hub to the spokes. Now let us compare the cross and a diagram of a man and the location of his chakras. See the video on flowers and chakras. And you can see that this hub coincides with the heart chakra, and the addition of the aura produces a cosmic egg, with the heart chakra at its centre. See the videos, cosmic egg, and auras and islands. And the mystic Hildegard of Bingen extended the man's arms so that the cross shape could be better seen. So now we know that each person with their aura is an island in a sea of cosmic, dark energy, and the aura in its entirety is also a cosmic egg, because every aggregate has its own aura and thus its own egg. As such, we can now switch to the much more detailed plan of the cosmic egg. Imagine the man now as having been rotated, and we are looking down on his head and seeing a cross-section round about his waist area. We have seen this picture many times. The man is here being represented as his own subset of the tree of life. See video, conscious aggregate. If her tutu were a little more fluffed out, he would look just like Degas's Little Dancer, so we will flatten out the tutu a bit so that it becomes a horizontal skirt. That's better, and the little girl has even used her arms to make herself look a bit egg-shaped. What then is the plan on her skirt? It would be a rounder version of this. The egg would have a circular cross-section, but the levels will be the same, with the elements, earth, water, air, fire, and then the ether level with all the 7 symbolic planets: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and in the centre, the hub of the Great Wheel. So there we are, Humpty Dumpty-like, shell symbolically on the outside, the Earth, but not flat like a map, much more egg-like, with our spine as the central pole and 2 arms poking out to make the cross. And we know that, metaphysically speaking, all those levels have different frequency or vibration rates. So let us see what happens when we add this additional dimension. The 3D Mandala. A mandala is a plan of the cosmic egg, taken across the widest part of the egg, around about Humpty Dumpty's belt. It is used in the design of stupas, pyramids, temples, especially Shaivist temples, and is the plan for the lingam and yoni. In order to explain the symbolism, the easiest way is to take you through the process of drawing a mandala. First, we start with the basic cosmic egg shape and take the cross-section. The next levels and layers are of the earth, terrestrial, so we now need to revert to drawing a square or a rectangle, the symbol for the mundane. The first level is the earth, so if we use green to represent the earth vibrational level, we get the following. And this is Chendabai Chorten, and we are on the first step. The next level is the element water, and this too is classified as terrestrial. So we use a rectangle and draw this in too, blue. And this is the Shwezigon Pagoda in Pakan, Burma. The element air comes next, and it too is classified as terrestrial, so is represented by the square or rectangle, again colour-coded, pale pink. This is the Budhanath Stupa in Nepal. The last terrestrial element is fire, whose colour coding is fairly universal. This is a reconstruction of the Choka Sambil ziggurat, a model about 1300 BCE. The final level is the ether level, which is celestial. This level can be further divided into numerous other levels and layers. The 7 planets and stars, see the map of the egg. But all of these levels, being celestial, have a circle or oval as the symbolic shape of representation. This is Borobudur in Java, from the air. And this is Chichen Itza in Mexico, from the ground, showing all 11 levels, 7 plus 4, indicating colour rather than shape were used for the higher levels. And this temple is similar. And now seen from the air. And this basic plan structure is then basis for the majority of Shaivistic temples, not only in southern India, but in Cambodia, Angkor Wat, and in Indonesia, for example, in Bali. It is used for Buddhist stupas, and in Nepal, and you can see the link between this and the lingam and yoni. The hourglass and the mandala. But this is not the end. The crown chakra, when open, provides us with access to our higher spirit and the intelligence hierarchy. So we now have to imagine ourselves to be the bottom bowl of the hourglass, with that tiny, tiny bridge, see Bridges video, between us and the celestial hierarchy, sending us inspiration, wisdom, and so on. And this mandala from Bhutan shows this perfectly. This is Mount Meru, home of the celestial hierarchy and the entire intelligence hierarchy, but shown upside down and balancing precariously on the cone below, our chalice or Holy Grail. Hindus sometimes turn Mount Meru upside down so that they can show in their temples just how many layers and gods there are in heaven. But the cross and its meaning is the same, and applies only to the bottom bowl, as it represents the 4 paths of ascent to the centre. And this can be clearly seen in the photo of the Pyramid of the Sun, Mexico. There are 4 very distinct staircases that symbolically provide direct ascent. Flatten this out and you have a cross. A bit like a Ludo or Parcheesi board. Corpus Hermeticum, Hermes Trismegistus, Poimandres, section 24, the ascent of the soul. And thus it is that man rises thereafter through the harmony, that is, the harmonious spheres of the planets. To the first zone, Moon, he abandons the power of growth and decay. To the second, Mercury, return evil schemings, now de-energized. To the third, Venus, the illusions of desire, de-energized. To the fourth, Sun, the arrogance of power, de-energized. To the fifth, Mars, impious daring and presumption. To the sixth, Jupiter, the striving for wealth by evil means. And to the seventh zone, Saturn, ensnaring falsehood. And then, stripped of that which was given its energy by the harmony, and clothed in its proper power, he enters into the eighth sphere.